Hello everyone, this is Maki. Gundam Unicorn is a story set in the Universal Century world. Its stylish and intense battle scenes brought in many new fans, while delighting long-time fans with the reappearance of nostalgic mobile suits. While the series has many appealing elements, it often divides opinions. Why does it have such a mixed reception? Starting today, I'd like to break down the differences between the original Universal Century and Gundam Unicorn in a few sessions. Eventually, I'd also like to reveal the mystery of the Lobrace's box. This topic may take quite a bit of time, but I'd be really happy if you stuck around for it. Today, I'd like to discuss the differences between the space migration policy and the space colonies in the original Universal Century and in the world of Unicorn. By original Universal Century, I mean the world depicted in the stories written by Mr. Yoshiyuki Tomino. When I mention the world of Unicorn, I'm referring to the stories written by Mr. Haruto Shifu Kui, who served as director and original author. By examining these differences, we can begin to understand why people have different opinions about the series. Before we dive into the main topic, I have a quick announcement. My channel is currently accepting support through memberships. For 0.99 a month, you get a name badge and comment stamps. Alright, let's begin the analysis. In the Universal Century world, Earth's natural environment had suffered severe damage. Without intervention, the planet would eventually become a dead world, resulting in the extinction of all living things. It was in response to this crisis that the Earth's Federation government was established. The government initiated a policy to migrate all of humanity into space. This was an incredibly difficult, large-scale endeavor. The novels written by Mr. Tomino don't go into much detail about this plan's step-by-step progression. However, the first volume of the novel written by Mr. Fukui briefly mentions the plan. It is mentioned during a speech by Ricardo Morales. When he announces the start of the space migration project, he also announces the start of the new global era, the Universal Century. Construction of the size clusters of space colonies begins one by one. It's stated that completing up to Site 6, the 6th migration site, would take 50 years. The Earth's Federation government set out to carry out a grand plan that would take over 50 years to save both humanity and the Earth. In Mr. Tomino's world and throughout the Universal Century, the Earth's Federation is often portrayed as corrupt and disappointing. However, at the beginning of the Universal Century, the Federation operated with genuine good intentions for the sake of all humanity, unifying the entire human race under a single government must have been anything but easy. Many forceful measures were likely involved. Currently, there is no spin-off depicting the formation of the Earth's Federation government. It's the kind of story I'd love to see someday. The challenge, of course, is that it would need to overcome the major hurdle of not featuring any mobile suits. Now, let's return to the topic of space migration policy. According to Full Frontal, the space migration policy was a policy of abandonment. In other words, he's saying that the Earth's Federation government discarded unnecessary people into space. This directly contradicts the original Universal Century's goal of sending all of humanity into space to preserve the Earth's environment. This is because the objective of the policy itself becomes different. Upon hearing Frontal's statement, some hardcore fans got the impression that this was happening in a different world than the original Universal Century. Some of you might be thinking, wait a minute. Honestly, I totally get where you're coming from. After all, the term policy of abandonment does appear in Gundam F91 written by Tomino himself. Let's take a look at what Maizarona says. Those who returned to Earth abandoned those who remained in space. The Earth Federation government implemented a policy of abandonment. That's the gist of his words. However, there's a subtle difference between what Maiza and Fronto are saying. Notice the word returned. Fronto claims that from the beginning, the policy was designed to exile unnecessary people from Earth. Maiza, on the other hand, says after the migration to space, high-ranking government officials and the wealthy wanted to return to Earth. They abandoned the poor and socially disadvantaged in space and returned to Earth. Maiza's statement implies that it wasn't a policy of abandonment from the beginning. Although the wording is similar, the intent behind Fronto's statement is quite different. Maiza's words also align with the events portrayed in the story of Hathaway. I discussed this in a previous video titled Who is Hathaway's Enemy? Feel free to check it out if you're interested. How do you interpret Fronto's statement? Do you interpret it as in the world of Gundam Unicorn, the Earth Federation government carried out a policy of abandonment, forcibly removing unnecessary people into space? Or do you see it as the leader of New Zeon, who harbors resentment toward the Earth Federation? Fronto was simply voicing what many people already felt deep down. If you agree with the first interpretation, then it makes sense that some people would conclude that the world of Gundam Unicorn is separate from the original Universal Century. However, I personally think the second interpretation is also valid. After all, Fronto himself says, albeit in abstract terms, I am merely a vessel for the will of the people, implying that he is playing a role. Now, let's continue exploring the differences between the original Universal Century and the one portrayed in Unicorn. One key difference lies in the population capacity of the space colonies. The colonies in the original Universal Century are documented in a source called the Complete Records Collection. Each side, a cluster of space colonies, consists of 36 to 40 colonies. Each colony houses 36 million people. Therefore, one side supports a population of approximately 1.3 billion people. That's how it's described. In Unicorn, however, the numbers are given in the first volume of the novel. A single space colony can accommodate around 10 million people. One side has a population of 700 to 800 million. Clearly, these figures differ. Some die-hard fans who noticed this discrepancy felt that the original Universal Century setting isn't being respected. This is one reason opinions tend to split between the original Universal Century and Gundam Unicorn. Of course, this is just one of several differences. The phenomenon of settings and numerical values differing depending on the medium does occur in other places. Even among official materials, the population capacity of space colonies can vary. For example, the official encyclopedia states that a single space colony can hold 20 to 25 million people. In the Gundam series, these numbers actually fluctuate quite often, even in official sources. When you think about it, the space migration plan was humanity's first attempt at such an enormous undertaking. It's highly unlikely that everything would go exactly according to plan. So perhaps these discrepancies are the result of trial and error from this bold challenge. This time, we took a closer look at the differences between the original Universal Century and the world of Gundam Unicorn. We focused on the space migration plan and the space colonies. How would you interpret these settings and the characters' statements? Personally, I interpret both versions as valid and look for reasons behind the differences. Each fan can choose how to enjoy the Gundam series. I often like to view events in spin-offs as things that truly happened within their respective worlds. However, some people prefer to think that anything not shown in the anime belongs to a different timeline altogether. There's no right or wrong way. The Gundam series embraces the idea that every fan can enjoy it in their own unique way. Even Yoshiyuki Tomino, the original creator, often emphasizes the importance of thinking with your own heart. That's all for now. I plan to analyze more differences between the original Universal Century and the world of Unicorn, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching until the end. See you next time on the show.